Hi. The other day I was talking with a friend of mine who is an American about Israel. Of course, he has the opinion that Israel is robbing land from the Arabs and from the Gazans and the Palestinians. And he asked me a very interesting question. How, you know, if Israel is pulling the wool over everyone's eyes and creating a narrative that's not real and promoting it, maybe that works in the States or Spain or Germany, but how does that work with Israelis who have to serve in the army in Israel? I mean, do children willingly go to the army knowing that they're robbing land from other people? And I explained something to him very carefully that that was a problem that Israel had back in the 60s, because there were some Jewish kids who, when they were called to military service, they didn't want to go because they believed that we're robbing land from other people and we shouldn't even be here and we should live in peace and love each other. So, the key was that Israel had to discover the facts. Is it true or not? And they had this nice book, which is called Myth and Facts, and you can see it's a guide to the conflict in Israel. Okay, and I'm one of the contributors in this book. I mean, I'm old enough that I actually wrote part of this book. And the idea was first to discover the reality. What is really going on? And if it's true that Jews are robbing land, let's just come out and say it, and maybe keep it a dirty little secret that we need land, so we're going to rob yours, like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Do whatever you can to gain market share. But among people, I wouldn't do that. So we looked into it and we discovered that those ideas about robbing land were completely wrong. I mean, what happened in Israel clearly was that there were always more Jews than Arabs there, even before Hitler was born. And then when the Holocaust occurred, more Jews came to Israel. They didn't have to. They could have gone back to Germany and Poland if their houses were still there. But immigration in and out was perfectly open, and anyone could go anywhere they wanted. And in a short time, the British left, and the Arabs found themselves outnumbered enormously. Now, before the Holocaust, they were outnumbered already. Okay, but after the Holocaust, they were outnumbered even more. So one concept was, whose land is it? It's your land, it's our land. Okay, let's all live together. Two-state solution. Immediately, the Arabs there said, no, we don't want a two-state solution. We want our country for ourselves. We're sick and tired of the British being here and living under their thumb, and we know we're outnumbered by you Jews, but we feel that this is our land and we want you out. We want the British out. Well, when the Jews heard that, they said, no, this is our land also. So Sahal, the Israeli army, was born in order to protect the Jews from attacks. And the kind of division began to exist, separating the two, a kind of separate but equal kind of lifestyle. But over the years, the Hamas people took over and started trying to kill the Jews. So Sahal's job became to protect the Jews from the Hamas and try to maintain this kind of like informal two-state solution, although the Arabs didn't want it. And therefore the Jews didn't want it. I mean, if the other guy doesn't want a two-state solution, you don't want it. So what happened was Sahal's job was to protect the Jews. Everyone knew that one day push would come to shove, and maybe the Hamas would try to kill the Jews to get rid of them. And the next day, the Jews would have to react in a humane way and remove all those people from Israel, which is where we are right now. So all of that had to be explained in a book so that the kids in 1970 who were drafted into the Israeli army didn't feel we're robbing someone else's land, because that wasn't true. And maybe I want to be clear, it's not that it was true, but it had to be covered up and lied. Israel had to lie to its own people, okay? And select those for officership in the army who believed the lie, or who didn't think it was a lie. They just believed it, okay? They really knew that the land wasn't being robbed from anyone, and they needed to get the point across to their own people. So a book was written on that. Now, American Jews read this book and they, maybe understand a little bit about what happened in the past. But even before Hitler was born, there were more Jews in that land than Arabs. But they were British, even more British than Jews. And when the British left, the two-state solution might have been a great idea. I think the Israelis wanted it. Golda Meir did. Or maybe it was just lip service. But from the other side of the table, the other guys wanted to get the Jews out. And the Sahal was born in order to protect the Jews. It wasn't there to hurt the Arabs. Now, you might say that the Arabs or the Palestinians are living in a prison camp. They're crowded into this little place. Yeah, because so many times they've tried under the leadership of Hamas to kill the Jews, that the Sahal has only one choice. Corral them in there. If not, they're just going to keep killing the Jews. The other choice would have been to kill all of them or push them out. So, the first idea was show them, don't try to kill us because we could do more harm to you. That didn't work because Hamas kept shooting and shooting. The next option was to isolate from where the shots come, which was to corral them in there. That's why, Israeli kids look at what's going on in the Gaza Strip and in other areas where millions of Palestinians live in very bad conditions, confined to a kind of corral. But they understand that this is the only way we can survive in this country. The Sahel has to keep them there because if they're just walking among us and living among us, they're going to try to kill us. Okay? And the other option is we kill them or we push them out. So it's this. This is all we got. And that's the true story. So last week, Hamas pulled the plug, hit the button and said, let's kill them. Let's kill those Jews, and started sending rockets all over the place. And that means Sahal's next step has to be the only logical one, which is take all the people out of Gaza and move them across the border into Egypt. Whether Egypt likes it or not, pay Egypt or do it at gunpoint, but they have to be moved out of the country. They got to go somewhere because this cannot continue. Okay? I mean, Sahal's job for decades was to protect the Jews, whatever has to be done in the most humane way, dealing with the non-Jews. So, first it was protection, security guards walking the streets, then it was corralling them in because they were trying to kill the Jews. There was no other option. I mean, it looks pretty bad when you see them corralled in there, but if you don't do that, what was it like before that? They were just shooting all the time and killing the Jews. So we are now at a point in time where Sahal's job is to just move them out in a humane way. No one has to be killed. You don't have to distinguish the good from the bad, the Hamas terrorists from the good people in Palestine. All of them have to be moved out. No, I don't know where. That's not my job. But when this book was written and I collaborated on it, the idea of the book was to explain to Israeli Jewish kids who are 17 who are entering the Israeli army, if you're having nightmares that you think you're robbing people's land, not that you need to learn to live with it, or we need to lie to you and tell you you're not robbing people's land, but you're really not robbing people's land. This is a myth. And the truth is there's always been more Jews there, so it really is the land of two people. And the purpose of the army is to protect the Jews in a humane way from those people who do not want a two-state solution, who have decided they want us out, and they're going to try to kill us. That's your job when you're in the Israeli army. And that idea sits very well with the Jewish kids. The boys and the girls in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, the pilots, the commandos, the SEALs. It's the truth, and it's an idea that sits well. So in Israeli schools back then, kids in 5th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade were reading this book in Hebrew and telling their parents, now I see things more clearly. We're not robbing anyone's land. We're not conquistadors from Spain. We're not imperialists, Americans who killed the Indians. Okay? We're in our land and they're in their land, and they don't want us here. And therefore, we don't want them here because we're not going to live in a country with people who don't want us here. Sahal's job is to protect us. That's my job while I'm in the military, to protect us from these people in a humane way. And if they try to kill us, well, we'll corral them in. And if they still try to kill us from the corral, we'll move them out. And that's where we are now. So if you want to know the truth about what's going on in that part of the world, get your hands on this book, okay? You'll find me somewhere in the book in one of the chapters. I was much younger, and explaining the reality of the situation. But this American person said to me, he said Israel is really robbing land from the Arabs. It was theirs at first, and the Jews are creating a false narrative and promoting it through the media that the Jews own and the powerful army. And Israel lies to Americans and lies to Spanish and Germans and lies to everybody, and AIPAC is there too. But how do they lie to their own people who serve in the Israeli army? How do they lie to them? Because they know what's really going on. And, I said to him, your question is misleading because they're not lying to them. They tell them the truth, that we're not robbing anyone's land at all. So read the book and find out what the job of Sahal was in its origin, to protect Jews in a two-state solution. Then when the other people didn't want the two-state solution, it was, well, if you don't want it, we don't want it, but we'll still respect you in a human way that our army will protect us from you guys. And when those guys started shooting and doing all that stuff, they had to be corralled in. The other option was move them out or kill them, okay? And over time, that corral got smaller and smaller. Now we're at a point now in October of 2023 where Sahal's job now is to drive trucks and just move them out. They can no longer be there. I mean, that is the end. Because last week Gaza's decision was, we want to kill you all. We just can't stand you anymore being in this land. We're not sharing it with you anymore. And the Sahal's job now is, okay, then you guys get out because we're not getting out and we're not going to keep you corralled in anymore. But the truth is, this land, more Jews lived in that land even before Hitler was born. Okay? So no young boy in Israel in those days, in the 70s or even today, or an American thinking about making Aliyah and serving in the Israeli army should think we're robbing people's land. It has nothing to do with that. Last shot at the book, and goodbye.